Anne Arundel County is a beautiful place. It's really a microcosm of the United States. The fourth largest jurisdiction in Maryland. We're at over 580,000 now, and we have BWI Airport. Between Baltimore and Washington in that corridor, we have 530 miles of coast right up against the Chesapeake Bay. And of course, we're the capital of Maryland. People come here because it's got urban, rural, suburban. It's really a fantastic place to live.
Our award-winning park system has 130 community parks and 6 regional parks. We have 7,100 acres of recreational land, 9,100 acres of natural resource land, and park systems for everyone that lives in and outside of the county.
And Arundel County's done a good job of building our relationships with the community. That helps us make not just the critical decisions, but sound decisions, because we're hearing from a segment of everyone.
There are really 2 things that I think are important for a government. The first is to restore trust. That means restoring trust between people, restore trust in what local government does. And so we've created a thing called Open Arundel, where the residents can go in and look at the performance metrics for every department of county government, and they can engage as well. We do budget town halls in every district, and we make sure that everybody's voice is heard.
Thank you.
And the other is to be healthy, health and wellness for us, our loved ones, our neighbors, our communities. And so I really measure the success of what we do based on health and wellness of our residents.
In land use, we are dedicated to making life better for our residents in Anne Arundel County. Plan 2040 is the guide for the next 20 years to ensure that development is smart, green, and equitable. Smart growth is ultimately health and wellness, because having the ability to walk, development is centered around transit, preserving open space and our natural resources.
Anne Arundel County Department of Recreation and Parks' mission statement is to create opportunities to enjoy life, explore nature, and restore well-being. We have athletic programs, recreational programs, child care services. There's something there for everyone, and we make life better.
In Anne Arundel County, the Department of Health, we are here to prevent, promote, and protect the health of all people in Anne Arundel County and people who visit as well. So our Office of Health Equity and Racial Justice was established when we were looking at what was happening in our county and in the world. And what we saw was persistent disparities in health outcomes based on race, ethnicity, gender, income, and even geography. And so we declared in this county racism as a public health issue in November of 2019, and we formed this Office of Health Equity and Racial Justice to address those issues and advance them.
The Anne Arundel County Police Department was founded in 1937. The agency is very progressive. All of our police officers are fully trained wearing a body-worn camera. We have 2 professors who've come in to help us journey through the history of policing and how policing has impacted communities of color. Having conversations with a facilitator about race and equity and diversity and inclusion, just so that we better understand one another. We have our crisis intervention team where we partner a police officer with a licensed clinician. They respond to these critical calls for service where people are suffering some type of behavioral or mental health crises. So we essentially see them through to any resources that they may require, whether it be a psychologist or drug treatment for longer periods of time. So our team was named the crisis intervention team internationally. That's a huge recognition. So we're asked to go to various police departments to help establish their very own crisis intervention team. There are times where our county departments will overlap, and we have a great working relationship between, OEM and fire. Preety Emmerich, we're rendering or offering assistance to help folks through those moments.
The Office of Emergency Management coordinates the planning, response, and recovery to natural and man-made disasters. That involves a couple of steps. Number 1, in the planning process, making sure we have plans ready. Number 2, we exercise and train with our county agencies. Number 3, when it is time to respond, we activate our Emergency Operations Center. And then that's where all the county agencies come in and coordinate the response. And then the 4th step is really the recovery process. So after the response is done, there's still a lot of cleanup work. There's still a lot of community help that's needed and making sure all the county agencies are involved. One of our newest resources is Pepper the Preparedness Pup. We really want to make sure that children understand that to be prepared is the best thing. So to teach them different situations in very simple terms.
Today we are learning about thunderstorms. Do you know what to do during a thunderstorm?
It's just the beginning steps of how to be prepared.
Another thing that we all agree on is that there should be economic opportunity for everyone. As a lifelong business person myself, I'm very aware of the fact that what we do for our residents is possible only if the business community is behind it. The businesses are our partners, and together, everything positive we do for our community is helping the quality of life that people of all ages and all income levels need and want. Those are things that we can deliver in Anne Arundel County, and that's what makes us the best place for all.
All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that little video. That was put together by the International City Managers Association. They asked to come in and interview some of our staff and have us talk about what we do in the county for their annual conference this year. So we thought we'd share it with you because I thought it was pretty well done. But welcome to our budget town hall for District 3. It's our third of 7 that we're doing around the county. I want to welcome Councilman Nathan Volke, your county councilman, who will have a few words in a minute and some words at the end, I'm sure, as well. But I just want to remind people why we do these and what they are. This is an opportunity for you to speak to my administration. I have a number of my staff on here listening, as well as to me and your council person, all in the same room so that we can compare notes and hear from you directly about things that you think should be priorities in the budget or anything related to the budget. So we're going to do a slide presentation with Chris Trumbauer, our budget officer, and myself. But before we do that, I just want to say that the county is in a good fiscal position. I think we have, we went through a little bit of a scare with COVID on finances, and our second budget was a belt tightening budget. We had low revenue projections, and then the economy did better than expected, and we've ended each year with a surplus, which is one-time money that we can invest. And so in terms of infrastructure, with help from federal spending as well, we're moving forward on things that I think have been needed for a long time. And I think we've done well getting our teachers, our firefighters, and our police officers up to the pay levels of our neighboring jurisdictions and increase some staffing as well. So I believe we're in a good place. I think we're in a place where we can do some things, but certainly not everything. We're going to have to make some tough decisions this year. But that's why we want to hear from you, so that when we sit down and start to crunch the numbers, your voices are ringing in our ears. And I can assure you that there have been things put in this budget that really were first brought out in these budget town halls. So I will turn it over to Councilman Volke for some words, and then we'll do the quick slide presentation and then hear from you.
Thank you, County Executive Pittman. Appreciate the opportunity to do what is now our fourth budget town hall together. So I was looking back at my notes from the first one, and it seems like yesterday, but it was a long time ago. So with that, I am looking forward to hearing from everyone. Every year is different. And as the county executive said, every year something comes up that does find its way in the budget. We've heard issues with animal care and control. Those issues have now been funded. We've heard about sidewalks, traffic studies with respect to that, and those things, some of those are moving along, and I think we'll hear more about that tonight. So it's always good for us to get that feedback, because while certainly at a high level, we may all come to the same consensus that we want, schools and police and fire and all those things, there sometimes are some issues that are not always quite as front of mind for us, and these budget town halls help to put them there so that we know additional things that we can be investing in that our residents want. So with that, looking forward to hearing from everyone this evening and taking some notes. Thank you.
All right, let's kick it over to Chris Trumbauer, our budget officer, for some background information.
Great. Good evening, everybody. Bear with me for 1 second as I go to share my screen here. Okay, and let's make it big. Okay, so I'm Chris Trumbauer. I'm your friendly neighborhood budget officer. We're going to run through a few slides real quick. As County Executive Pittman said, we're really proud of putting these on 7 every year to get feedback from the community. And we're just going to walk you through some basics of the budget and then get out of the way so we can hear your comments on the budget. So first is the timeline. You see where we're circled. That's January. That's right now. And so our budget preparation has already begun back in September, but no real final decisions have been made. We're still taking departmental requests. We're still looking at capital projects. And that's why it's important that we have these town halls now so we can get input, and the county executive and others in the administration can hear what residents have to say. So just really quickly, we have to submit our budget to the county council by this year, April 29th. And then the council has 45 days to deliberate on it, and they are required to vote on it by June 15th. So that's 45 days, and then it goes into effect on July 1st, which is the beginning of the fiscal year. So here's the first of a couple slides that's just going to show you what our current budget looks like. On the left is kind of a visual representation, and on the right is the categories. This is where we get our revenue. So the two largest bars there, that's property tax and income tax. Those are the two big components of where the county gets its revenue. And then under that, you see much smaller slices of the pie, but nonetheless very important. Recordation and transfer tax is from real estate transactions. You see other things like state shared revenue that includes the casino money that we get from Maryland Live. And then of course, licensing and permits from all the various fees. And then investment income, we actually earn money on the county's investments that we put some of our longer term funds in. So that all totals up on the left there to $1.873 billion with a B. And it is a balanced budget as required in our charter. So as we go to the next slide, this is the expenditures, where the money goes. So you'll notice at the top, the biggest bar there, that's our friends at the Board of Education. They get almost $900 million, and that is a little over half of our entire budget. That's followed by public safety, police, fire, detention, Office of Emergency Management, and those good folks. And then you can see just going down the list, the different core groups of different government agencies that we fund the operations for. And the last three at the bottom are what we call our component units. So those have a little bit more autonomy. They're not completely under the county government, but we do fund them, and that's the community college, the library, and the court system. Okay, so a little bit of more of a breakdown on the Board of Education funding. So we give them direct funding of $784.7 million. That's literally almost a check that we send over to the school system, and then they get to appropriate it using the Board of Ed's budget. But then we also have other funding sources that we contribute to education. So debt service is the essentially the interest payments on our bonds, and then our school health officers and school health nurses. And then we also pay for school safety, which is the student resource officers and the school crossing guards. So that all totals to almost $900 million. That's 51% of the total recurring revenue that the county sends out. So I'm going to turn it back over to County Executive Pittman to run through some highlights of the current year budget.
So we put this slide in here to note that the county is in a better place than it's really ever been fiscally. When the bond rating agencies look at us, they look at things like our revenue reserve fund, the rainy day fund, and we've increased that. It's over 100 million now for the first time, and we just put in a bill to get to the max that we're allowed, and we raised that max to 6%. So the bond rating agencies will like that. We also changed the way we do our payments into our pension fund. We project an interest rate on those funds, and we lowered our projection, basically setting us up for a bad economy if it comes, for less good times. Bond rating agencies like that, and it secures our pension funds. And then debt affordability is a calculation of how much we should be allowed to borrow, how much is really safe to borrow, and the last administration in their last budget had been 75 million over that calculation, debt affordability. We got in this last budget down to 0 over debt affordability. In fact, we're not borrowing any more than we should. Gradually got it down to that point. We want to keep it there, but we're also using more of our money up front for capital projects. So there's more that we call it pay as you go, so that we don't have to borrow, which means we don't have to pay interest. We like that. Next slide. On public safety, I always do this first because it's really, I think, the most fundamental obligation of government is to protect its residents. And we have, I saw a slide recently that was put out by a reporter in Baltimore of the region and how much they'd increased spending for their police department since 2018, and Anne Arundel County had increased the most, and it's a significant increase. And it's been spent not only for our officer pay and increasing the numbers of sworn officers that we have, because we were way below what the national experts said we should be, but we did the body worn camera program. We've created the Community Services Bureau, which was mostly elevating the community policing work, mostly existing positions, a couple of extra ones. In fire, we also increased those numbers in fire department, as well as in detention. But we did a lot of investments into our apparatus, where we had a lot of old apparatus that needed to be replaced. We did a lot of that in the last year. And then one of the things we did this year was use some of our federal money to increase the number that are getting trained to become paramedics. And we found, especially in this health crisis, that we need more paramedics. So it's an intensive training program and it's expensive. So we invested there. Next slide. And then in education, this last budget, we pretty much doubled the increase that we're required to have by state law. There's a maintenance of effort that every county has to do according to a state formula to be able to provide funding for our schools and for our kids. But we have been trying to catch up to reduce class size, so 35 new classroom teachers for that. We've had mental health issues in our schools, and our special ed programs have been underfunded, so we've added positions there, 15. And then there were teachers that had not gotten what they call their step increases starting during the recession. So they were promised that each year, as part of their pay package, there would be this annual step increase in addition to the cost of living. And some teachers were as many as 8 or 9 years behind on step increase. So their annual salary was way below what it should have been. Over 3 years, we fixed that. So in this last budget, we made our teachers whole. But we've got a lot of work to continue. And as we look forward on education, the blueprint for education that the state mandate is going to cost the county significant money to meet the terms of that. But it's designed to make our schools the best in the world. And I think that's the best economic development program we could ever have, is to have great schools. So next slide. And then on infrastructure, you may remember in our first budget, we needed to do some catching up. We had a school construction plan that there was no way that we could keep pace with. We had road improvements that we needed to do that had not been funded. So we did a thing called the Permanent Public Improvements Fund. It was $250 million. It was a 0.1% increase on your income tax. And it made it possible for us to invest and catch up on infrastructure. So that's why we're able to do 5 fire stations that are in the 6-year plan. It's helping pay for that Rivera Beach Library that you see as you drive by on Mountain Road that's under construction, and our school construction. And then particularly with state highways, they had been promising they're their roads. They're supposed to be the ones that are investing in the failed intersections, particularly Route 2 and Route 3, Ritchie Highway and Route 3. So we put as a carrot money so that the state would come in and invest. And we now have a contract memorandum with the state highways to finally move forward on those traffic intersections. And we're going to be having a town hall on that as well, one for Route 2, one for Route 3. So you can take a really good hard look at what the plan is there. Next slide. And then on the environment, a lot we've been doing. You've probably heard about the Resilience Authority to deal with the impacts of climate change. Raising of City Dock in Annapolis is one. So we've created that first independent resilience authority in the state and in the nation. And we think that will set us up well to get some of the federal money to deal with some of the public infrastructure in particular that's impacted by sea level rise and storm surge. New Forest Conservation Mitigation Fund for county projects that need to meet the terms of our forest conservation program. Their greenways land acquisition is part of our green infrastructure plan to preserve open space in the county and acquire it when there's an opportunity. Electric vehicle charging network we're both for residents for electric vehicles, and we're working to transfer all county vehicles to electric in the coming years. And then stormwater. I know in your district you've had a lot of stormwater issues, sometimes with new developments, and in inspections and permits we have our new stormwater strike team that really does get out there and check and make sure that these systems are working when they're put in during development and after. And then in District 3, here are some of the projects that are either underway or that are funded. Many of you had advocated for these. I know Councilman Volke has advocated for many of these. And we do keep track by district and geographic area to make sure that all of the county is getting served in the capital budget. Next slide, and I think back.
Hey, this is where I take over again for a second to give you a breather, boss. But going to talk just for a few minutes about the fiscal expectations looking forward for fiscal year 23 budget, which is what we're formulating now. So looking at what's happening at the moment, the revenues for the last 2 years have come back in better than we projected. And that's because the effects of the pandemic haven't been as bad as we feared. So that's good. We've also gotten federal recovery funding through the CARES Act and the America Rescue Plan Act, which has been extremely helpful, not only for government operations, but also for the number of assistance programs to deal with the impacts of the pandemic. So what we're looking at for FY23, for fiscal year 23, is continued stable revenues. We feel fairly confident that things are looking okay in the upcoming year. However, many people have been following the inflation level has been very high. And so we're obviously concerned that things will be more expensive, things will cost more due to that inflation. So that'll eat up some of that good news on the recurring revenue side. We do have something that we refer to as a fund balance. So because the last 2 years, the revenues have come back better than we budgeted for, that gives us some extra, what we call one-time funding, and that can be used for appropriate things. We can put that money in the capital budget, as the county exec mentioned earlier, to put towards our projects, or we can use it for one-time items in our operating budget if we wanted to buy equipment or a temporary program or initiative or something like that. So when we look ahead at the expenditure side, which is money going out of the house, there's things we call non-discretionary increases. These are things we have to pay for, and that's things like debt service increase, how our health insurance and pension costs go up, and then we negotiate the compensation packages with our bargaining units, the labor groups. And so we're required to fund those as well. And then there's the discretionary increases. So these are things like giving the community college extra funds than what is required, and the Board of Education more than what's mandated. And then we have the need to continue to support these enhanced health and human services programs that we've started over the last year or two since COVID hit. And then finally, all of our departments have great ideas on additional programs and things that they could do to help county residents. So they present those to us, and we call them supplemental budget requests. And to the extent that we have discretionary funding available, we try and put good programs in place there. Real quick, I'm going to show you where Anne Arundel County stacks up in comparison to our neighbors. You're looking at property tax right now. It's $0.933 per $100 of assessed value. Fortunately, that's the 7th lowest in Maryland and the lowest in the region. So none of the other large counties have a rate close to that. Most of them are over $1, and you see our friends at Baltimore City are almost off the charts over there. So getting a good deal on property tax, and then we also have a very, I think, generous homestead credit in Anne Arundel County as well. Income tax looks even better. You're getting a good deal if you're an Anne Arundel County resident. You're paying the 4th lowest income tax in all of the state. That's 24 jurisdictions. We're the 4th lowest. Many of our neighbors have the maximum allowed percentage of 3.2%. Again, all of the large counties are way above us, but we have 2.81% in Maryland. That's the 4th lowest. And the only counties that pay a lower income tax rate are Garrett in Western Maryland, and then our friends Talbot and Worcester over in the Eastern Shore. And all 3 of those are pretty rural counties. I'm going to turn it back over to the boss to talk a little bit about our fiscal recovery funds.
Okay, I don't want to talk too much about this, but this is the federal money that's been very helpful in the last couple of years. The CARES Act, we had $100 million that has been spent and accounted for, and you can go online and see how that's been spent. That was to be used for impacts of COVID, some of it health impacts, some of it economic impacts, and then that ended, and now we have what's called ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, And it's divided into 2 installments. You can see it's 112 million, but 56 million came in May of 21, and 56 million will come in May of 22. And if you go to the next slide, you can see it's somewhat of a breakdown. I can show you in a minute how you can get some detail on this, but you can see health and wellness, county operations, food assistance, and then some county premium pay and the vaccine incentives up at the top. So if you go to the next, the open Arundel is, that was, I think we talked about that a little bit before, that you can, or you saw it in the video, I guess, that you can go in and look at the performance metrics that we look at on each department. There's a lot of map and GIS information that is really fascinating to look at. So if you're a bit of a government or budget nerd, this is a great place to hang out. It's there's a lot there. And then the next slide is I'm going to let Chris just very briefly tell you something that's coming. It's not. I'm so excited about it. I wanted to give you a preview because it exists, but making it available to the public. There's some security things that have to be done before we do that. But this is the budget tool that we created in our first 3 budgets, where you could go in and almost create your own budget and look at the detail and then make adjustments. It's now a lot more interesting than it was. There's a lot more detail there. So Chris, if you want to show us a little of that.
Great, thanks, Mr. County Exec. So this is our still under construction open budget tool. This was developed on a platform called Tableau by Stephen Turow, who's in the budget office. And as the county exec said, we're hoping to make this live and available for the public to go to, but we've got a little bit more work to do on the IT side to make that happen. But what happens here is you can go and look at expenditures, or you can look at revenue. And this is the current year budget. So I'm going to click on revenue. And what you see is the same several categories that we showed earlier. But the difference here is you can dive in and you can take a look at what's going on. So for instance, if I wanted to look at fees for services, you can see here's all the different ways that that's broken out. So we have administrative fees, we have our rec and parks fees, cable fees, even the income that we get from golf courses. And you can click on any of these and you can see the exact amounts and all kinds of things like that. So don't want to get into too much detail, but this is a really interesting tool to explore where the revenue comes in. And then we'll go back to home and we'll look at the expenditure side of the house. So this is where the money goes. And these are all of the different county departments that have their own individual budgets. You can see the Board of Ed is the biggest one. If I was to click on that, you wouldn't get any detail because we essentially just send the money to them and then they spend it on their side of the house. But you could look, for instance, at our police department. And so this will show you on the top is the budget by object. So that's the kind of the category that the money is being spent on. You can see by far the biggest one is personal services. So that's salary and compensation for our staff over the police officer. And then you can see all the other categories here. Down on the lower half of the screen, this is the budget by bureau. And you see the police department has 4 different bureaus: patrol services, administrative services, operations and investigations, and then the new bureau that was created last year by the county executive for community relations. And so you can click on any of these if we wanted to look at patrol services, and then you can get some more detail. Well, here's what it is. Well, guess what? It's almost all paying for police officers out on the streets. And then the other thing you can do on this side is look at the different positions. So over here on the left, these are all the different position classifications that we have in the police department. Everything from the police chief to a warehouse manager. But you can see the biggest bulk over here on the numbers. We have 413 positions for police corporal. We have 155 for police officer, 86 for police officer first class. And then you can see the history. The red lines are, I believe, the actual budget, and the blue is what it came in on. So you can see we're tracking very closely, which is good. So don't want to get too far into the weeds here, but wanted to give you guys a little bit of a test drive of what will be available shortly so that everybody can be their own budget wonk and take a look under the hood at what's going on in the county budget. So I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. County Exec.
Well, that's pretty much it. Do go to this webpage. It just disappeared.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, aacounty.org/yourbudget, and you can continue to engage there and get the information that you need. So we're going to hear from you now, and I just want to note that we won't be, Councilman Volke and I won't be commenting on each of your comments, but we'll at the end make comments and hopefully summarize some of what you said and give you our thoughts. So turning it over to, I believe, Reese Peak.
Hi, everyone. Excuse me. My name is Reese Peak, and I'm the Community Engagement Officer who works in the 3rd District. For tonight's public testimony, each speaker will have 2 minutes to give their public testimony. You'll see a timer on the screen, and that'll help you keep track of time. There it is. If you would like to speak, just click the raise hand function on Zoom, which should be at the bottom right. I'll call your name when it's your turn, and you'll have the ability to unmute yourself. And like the county executive said, he and the councilman will give their comments after the presentation. So I'm gonna call them out in groups of 3, and we currently have people raising their hand. The first person to speak will be, or the first 3, excuse me, is Brendan Maltese, and then Kathy, followed by Jacqueline Kyle. So Brendan, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, good evening. My name is Brendan Maltese, and I live at 8246 White Star Crossing. For the first part of my testimony, I'm speaking to you as the president of the Creekstone Village Townhouse Owners Association. For the 4th year in a row, I'm here to advocate for the county to move forward with the project to improve Jumpers Hole Road between Ritchie Highway and Mountain Road. During that time, hundreds of townhouses and apartment units have been added to Creekstone Village. Our community is great while you're inside it, but coming and going has become increasingly dangerous. It was the county's decision a decade ago to upzone the land to allow higher density development. So now it's time to follow through with that character change by modernizing Jumpers Hole Road to meet the new needs of the community. This should have been done years ago, and I hope this will be the year we finally get it done. Please accelerate this project. For the rest of my testimony, I'm speaking as an individual. County Executive Pittman, you promised during your campaign to restore a decade's worth of frozen salary steps for teachers. Thanks to your commitment to holding to this, my wife and I will both be paid on the correct step of the salary scale for the first time in our careers. I can't overstate how much this means to our family and thousands of teachers in our county. Thank you. So what's next? In the time since the first step was frozen in 2009, CPI has risen almost 30%. In the same time span, the teacher salary scale has only risen 10%. We're caught up on steps, so I hope you will continue your commitment to public education by getting us caught up on costs of living. CPI is nearing 7% this year, so that's probably a good starting point. Councilman Volke, I'd also like to thank you for being here tonight. I'm disappointed that you have voted against all 3 budgets so far in your term, including the previous 2, which include property tax rate cuts. You may not agree with everything in the budget, but good governance is about compromise. And I hope your vote will reflect the big picture by voting for a budget that largely meets the needs of our district and county. I also hope to see your advocacy for the Jumpers project span beyond this hearing. Our community needs you to hold the county executive to it. Thank you.
Brendan, Kathy is the next speaker.
Hello, my name is Kathy Fitzgerald. I'm a resident of District 3. I have been volunteering at Anne Arundel County Animal Care and Control in the CAC Gallery for just about 6 years. Thank you both, Mr. Volke and Mr. Pittman, for your support of the shelter. There have been many improvements and others that you have approved, which are still in the works. The larger cat cages that I spoke to you about a year ago, for example, have been on order for many months, but we're getting there. Tonight, I am going to focus on the need for a full-time staff veterinarian. I think it's fair to say we all agree that animal care and control needs a veterinarian and a better equipped clinic for that vet. But it's been unable to fill the part-time position that was included in this current year's budget. Veterinarians are in high demand and are being enticed accordingly. A vet hospital located less than 2 miles away from the shelter is advertising for a vet who would be paid up to $150,000 per year, plus a $20,000 sign-on bonus, paid time off, medical insurance, paid professional insurance, continuing education funds, no after-work requirements, and an employer-matched IRA. The hospital itself has state-of-the-art equipment. In contrast, Animal Care and Control has been advertising for a part-time hourly wage job with no benefits and possible evening and weekend hours. Not surprisingly, the position remains unfilled. To compete, Animal Care and Control has to offer what other local public shelters offer: a full-time position with a reasonable salary and benefits, plus the equipment and medical budget needed to do the job properly. This is our biggest ask this year. We hope you will be able to fulfill it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy. Jacqueline Kyle is the next speaker. You are unmuted and you are able to speak, but I can't hear you. So I'm going to give you a couple more seconds. Okay, well, maybe we'll try that. We'll try again later. Please do stay on the line. The next three will be Robert Hooper, Bill Howard, and Brian Nettie. And Jacqueline, please do stick around, and hopefully by the end you'll be able to work or speak. So Robert, the floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is Robert Hooper. I live at Creekstone Village, 8204 White Star Crossing. And I lived here just a little bit over 7 years, and when they were just started the community, and there wasn't that many people living here at the time. Now we're probably close to almost 2,000 people because they just added another whole addition to the backside of the community. And I'm asking, the budget includes funds to improve the Jumpers Hole Road between Ritchie Highway and Mountain Road. It's really getting overly congested, and I believe it's bordering on being dangerous. And a lot of times it's places where the school kids got to stay on the corner around there and pick up the buses. And I mean, the traffic's just horrendous. It needs some type of environment where it has either a circle or lighting, sidewalks. I mean, it's really dangerous. And that's all I got to say about it. I just hope somebody really looks hard at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Bill Howard is the next speaker.
Can you hear me okay?
Bill, I can hear you loud and clear.
Very good. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. There are two things. My name is William Howard. I live in Elizabeth's Landing in Pasadena, Maryland. Two issues that I'd like to bring up. One is sidewalk on Fort Smallwood Road from Elizabeth Landing Way. We have two schools on either side of the community, and there's no sidewalk for the children to walk on Fort Smallwood Road from our community. The second issue is I know the counties had to deal with unfunded mandates, one of them being which is the body-worn camera issue, and Anne Arundel County Police have instituted that and done an excellent job getting that ready, but it doesn't appear that there was budget for the body-worn cameras for the Sheriff's Department. So I would hope that that could be included at some point where they would be able to achieve the legal mandate on that particular issue. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Nettie is the next speaker.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. So yeah, my name is Brian Nettie. I live in Creekstone Village. I'm at 8217 White Star Crossing. And I as well am asking for this budget to include funds for Jumpers Hole Road in between Ritchie Highway and Mountain Road. We are new to the area. We actually just moved in at the end of last year. We love the community. We also love the county. But it's a very dangerous turn to the point where when me and my wife leave our neighborhood, we choose to leave out of the back of the neighborhood through a shopping center just to avoid having to make that turn. People walk on that road and it's a blind turn, at least from the right side because of tree coverage. So that's something that we hope could be taken care of. We do just want to thank you for doing this and hearing from us. We haven't been part of one of these for the county before, so actually listening and taking in suggestions from the community is something that we really look forward to doing in the future. So I'm going to leave my time there, but I do thank you all for hearing from us.
Thank you, Brian. The next three speakers I have are William Redmond, Skip Auld, and Scott Blacketter. So William, you are the next speaker.
All right, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Thank you.
Okay, yep. My name's William Redmond. I live at 8262 White Star. I am in Creekstone Village. And I would like to see the budget include funds for Jumpers Hole Road, right there at that intersection where Creekstone comes out. Like the other guys said, it gets crazy there. There's a lot of kids now that are on that road at bus stops. It seems like every day there's more and more, maybe 20 or 30 kids standing out on that road. Makes no sense at all that it's in the condition that it's in. And during rush hour, basically, you don't want to go that way. I am not the biggest fan of traffic lights. I don't want to just sit there if there's no one coming. If it was my opinion, during business or during high traffic area times, like 8 or 9 in the morning or 5, maybe there could be a blinking light, something. But it definitely, like Mr. Bob said, it's more than doubled back here. So someone needs to take notice, because it's not going to get any better, that's for sure. That's really all I have to say, and hopefully you guys can consider that when it comes to your budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Skip Auld is the next speaker.
Thank you so much, Reese. Good evening. I'm Skip Auld, CEO of Anne Arundel County Public Library. I want to begin by thanking County Executive Pittman and Councilman Volke for their support of the new Riviera Beach Library. The people of this community are going to benefit tremendously from this new library, and I look forward to inviting you both and all of you who are watching and listening to the ribbon cutting that's going to happen later this year. I'm testifying this evening in support of the library's budget and to ask for your support on 2 critical supplemental requests. My top priority, along with the Library Board of Trustees, is to ensure that our staff are paid fairly and competitively. Staff are the library's greatest asset and have more than proven their immense value during this pandemic. In addition to traditional services, our staff have already handed out 50,000 COVID test kits. They're hosting vaccine clinics. They're handing out food and collecting diapers for needy families. They are loaning out computers and Wi-Fi hotspots. They're helping prepare kids for kindergarten, and they are loaning out books, movies, and music. So please help us bring salaries in line with other jurisdictions. Our second priority is to initiate a critical outreach program called the Center for Community Engagement. This program seeks to reach people in the greatest need who cannot easily get to the libraries. The primary goal of this center is to increase kindergarten readiness. The library's early literacy programs teach parents and caregivers to become their child's first teacher, and they make learning fun. Creation of this Center for Community Engagement can build on our past success and impact kindergarten readiness by reaching people where they are. Thank you both for your support of these requests.
Thank you, Skip. Scott Blackletter is our next speaker.
Yes, hi, my name is Scott Blacketter, and I live on Millersville Road in Millersville. First, I'd like to thank Executive Pittman and Councilman Volke and all of the county folks involved for hosting this and listening to the citizens. I want to talk a little bit about not so much how to spend money, but not how to not spend money. I'm sorry. I've been involved with my community in trying to work with the Department of Recs and Parks, and the people there are very hardworking, good folks. But the process seems to be flawed in that they spent years developing a tennis center for Millersville Park, and only at the 11th hour did that get defeated in council because the community didn't want it. And I don't know how much money was wasted there, but now they are developing another plan for Millersville Park. And I fear that they are going to go down the same road of wasting a lot of time and money only for the community, me being one of them, to say that's too much for this neighborhood. And I think that all of the council people and the entire administration should rethink how we approach community design. It really needs to involve the community in the very beginning to understand what really fits in a particular place, rather than shoehorning something in that ultimately fails and just wastes everybody's time and energy and stresses people out. So I just hope that everybody can consider that moving forward, and maybe we can make the process better. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you for your comments, Scott. The next three speakers are Debbie Harton, Christina Reed Hill, and John Spencer. So Debbie, you are ready to speak.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I also want to thank Executive Pittman and Councilman Volke for this opportunity. I'm new to the county as of 3 years ago. I also live in Creekstone Village. You're hearing from a lot of us. Obviously, we're very concerned about the intersection and the whole stretch of Jumpers Hole Road between Mountain Road and Ritchie Highway. I also have been involved with Brendan, and I know that you all are doing some studies, which we are very grateful for. We do hope that this will make the funding. It's just a very overwhelming stretch of road, as everyone has said. I'm not going to reiterate, but it is rather dangerous, and I think it's going to continue to get more and more as people get out more. We do only have that one road access out of our development, so a lot of people do use the shopping center, which is not obviously the best way to have to, commute in and out. So I really stress that we hope that you will take this under consideration and find some solutions to assist us with that in the upcoming funding. The other part, I guess I would add with Kathy's comment, I am a volunteer also at Animal Care and Control, and also thank you for the support that you all have given the shelter in the last few years that I've been involved. We do desperately need the full-time veterinarian, and hope that you will, pay some heed to what she mentioned about the competitive rate and stuff. This is our county shelter where, it's getting overwhelmed on a continual basis with all the strays and surrenders and stuff with our economy. So they desperately need this staffing, and we do continue to thank you for all of the support you've provided with the additional supplies and other staffing needs that you all have been able to afford us. So thank you very much. And I just want to applaud as a new resident that I have found the county to be very responsive whenever I have a need. So thank you. I'm very happy to be a resident here.
Thank you, Debbie, and I'm happy to hear that as well. Christina Reed Hill is the next speaker.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, good evening. My name is Christina Reed Hill, and I also live in the Creekstone Village community at 8260 White Star Crossing. I am as well asking that your budget includes funds to improve the Jumpers Hole Road between Ritchie Highway and Mountain Road. I've lived in the community for a little over 4 years now, and I am in full agreement with everything, the comments that have been made with the other members of my community. Making a left-hand turn out of the community it's a nightmare. It's very hard, and I'm surprised that we don't have more accidents coming out of there. And because of that, I choose to also go through the shopping center to leave the community, because it's tough. It's scary. I mean, you'll sit there forever. So I'm just asking that you keep us in your budget. And that's it.
Thank you. John Spencer.
Okay, can you hear me now, Reese?
Yes, John.
Okay, is there any video from our side, or is
audio only?
Okay, very good, thanks. Okay, anyway, I'm joined by a total of 9 people. I have 6 people in the room here with me and 3 others out there trying to get in one way or the other. But good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address the funding needs of the Duval Corridor. I'm John Spencer, President of the High Point Improvement Association, and I'm joined by Bob Logan, President of the Haven Community Association, Mallory Fox, Green Haven Improvement Association, and Jamin Herman of Queens Park Community Association. Together, we represent the 4 communities that border the Duval Highway between Outing Avenue and Pine Haven Drive. I'm also joined by the following officers of the High Point Improvement Association. Vice President Bill Norris, who's the traffic, Secretary O'Boyle, Treasurer John Thornton, and Directors Joe O'Boyle and Dottie Duvall, who's not related to the highway. In my career, I was privileged to serve as a budget officer at 2 federal agencies, and everyone, without exception, always wanted either more staffing or more funding. Well, I'm sorry, but to disappoint you tonight, but we are not here asking for more money. Rather, we want to thank you and Councilmember Volpe for previously funding for completing the missing portion of the Duval Highway sidewalk through our 4 communities. The sidewalk and related crosswalks are currently included in the capital improvement program as followed. $369,000 in FY23, $853,000 in FY24, and $3.5 million for project completion in FY25. Once again, thank you for your support in improving the safety of students walking the High Point Elementary School, the Northeast Middle School, and the Northeast High School in this corridor. And I've still got a few seconds left. I'd also like to mention Central Avenue, which is a High Point only issue. The resurfacing of Central Avenue next to High Point Elementary was postponed at our request, pending completion of school's reconstruction. After some back and forth, Public Works has returned the resurfacing of the street to the funding queue for next year. However, it appears that the school reconstruction may have further deteriorated roadway, so the reconstruction should be seriously considered. At present, the roadway is rated as 79, but we believe that this rating is too high. Mr. Thornton and I recently drove Central Avenue and counted 18 bumps, some very significant. So again, we ask that Public Works do a reevaluation of the stretch of highway. Oh.
Thank you, John. The next speakers we have are Cecilia Harper, and I apologize if I get your name incorrectly. It looks like Jared Krubeski. And Mike Shire is the final speaker of this group. So Cecilia, you are free to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Hello, my name is Cecilia Harper, and I'm currently a sophomore at Northeast High School. 2 years ago, when I was in 8th grade, I started a community outreach project with 2 friends. Our project's goal is to advocate for the construction of sidewalks on Duval Highway. Although my friends could not be here tonight, they still express how the need for sidewalks on Duval is one that has existed for many years and will continue to exist if funding for this project is not ultimately provided. Prior to the pandemic, my friends and I attended and testified at budget meetings, Board of Education meetings, and Transportation Commission meetings about this topic. This road is used by many members of our community, especially students. There are 2 schools located directly on this highway, Northeast High School and High Point Elementary School, and less than a half-mile away from Duval is another school, Northeast Middle. This location explains why there are always people walking along the side of the road. However, there is still not a continuous sidewalk along Duval. There are over 14 blocks along this road without sidewalks, and the sidewalks that do exist are not well kept. There are broken sections of concrete, uncut grass in the summer, and during snowstorms, like the ones we've experienced in the past few weeks, the sidewalks are not shoveled and inevitably become icy. I'm lucky enough to have a ride to school with my parents every morning, but I still walk home on most days. However, consider my peers who walk to and from school every day on this road. I would like to ask you, members of the County Council, would you be motivated to go to school each morning if you knew that to get there you'd have to walk in the dark, during snow, rain, when there's ice on the ground? Now imagine that walk in below freezing temperatures. I'm presuming your answer is like mine. The answer is no. Now imagine you are walking in these conditions with no sidewalks, with cars less than 3 feet away from you going many miles over the speed limit. Unfortunately, for many students, this is not something they need to imagine, as they experience it every day. The lack of school buses this year has made the need for safe walking routes to school even more urgent for students in our community. I'm here tonight to thank my councilman Nathan Volke and County Executive Stuart Pittman for including the funding to complete the sidewalk on Duval Highway in the Capital Improvement Program for fiscal years 2023 to 2025. This funding will allow for all members of our community to enjoy their own walks, runs, and bike rides on the road that connects schools, a new library, neighborhoods, parks, and people to each other. In addition to this, it would make students like myself and others feel safe during the daily walk to and from schools. Although this budgeted funding is an extremely important first step in getting these sidewalks completed, I'm also aware that any number of things could go wrong with even the best laid plans. Therefore, I hope that you all continue with your tenacious support to make this plan a reality. Please don't let the Duval Highway project fall by the wayside. I know I won't. Thank you for your support and consideration.
Thank you. Jared Kravitsky is the next speaker, followed by Mike Shire.
Hello. Following Cecilia is going to be a tough act, but I would like to advocate for the Jumpers Hole project, specifically between Mountain Road and Route 2, but not just the road itself. We need to ensure that we are improving the intersection at Maryland Route 2 and Mountain Road. But this shouldn't be left just there. We need to continue the project all the way through to Jumpers Hole where it intersects with the BNA trail, which leads me into the next point, something that Cecilia was actually mentioning as well, active transportation. We can't treat our cars as constituents. County councilmen, you need to make sure that you are paying attention to the people in a county, whether they be on foot, bicycle, or car. Focusing solely on the car does you no justice. Please ensure that all county improvements take the people into account. Make sure that people are able to walk safely, ride, skate, or drive. It is not just the vehicles that you need to pay attention to, but the people themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mike Shire, you're up next.
Good evening. I'm Mike Shire. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great, Mike.
Great. Thanks. I'm Mike Shire from the Anne Arundel County Fraternal Order of Police. First, I want to thank Mr. Pittman and Councilman Volke for the opportunity to speak here tonight. I'm speaking on behalf of the Fraternal Order of Police and the police officers of Anne Arundel County. Our police officers are out on the street every day, pandemic or not, and they are providing unparalleled services to our community. Even at fully budgeted strength, with staffing levels well below other jurisdictions, this is happening. This means as a practical matter, our officers are burdened with the responsibility of performing like 2 or 3 other officers from other jurisdictions. Despite that, as has been mentioned here tonight, it's notable that while crime increases around us, Anne Arundel County police officers have held back that tide and decreased crime in this county. We've made enormous progress digging out of the hole that was created by previous administration's failure to invest in public safety, but there is still more work to be done. We have facilities that are overdue for replacement and reinvestment, such as our abysmal firearms range at our training academy. We have initiatives that are in need of greater support, such as our technology programs and our mental health programs. This should not be mistaken with spending. This is investment in the safety and security of our communities. And this will pay dividends in so many more ways. It's important that we have the support of our citizens and our elected officials, not only in their rhetoric and their legislation, but also, of course, what we're here to discuss, the county budget. So I don't think it's a coincidence that the county executive has been highlighting public safety as the first thing in many of these presentations. And I'm sure that it is our collective hope that our elected officials recognize and remember the vital role that public safety continues to play in making Anne Arundel County the best place for all. And we thank everyone for our support. Have a great night.
Thank you, Mike. We appreciate those comments. The next three speakers are Amanda, just Amanda, that's all it says, Charles D. Fowler IV, and John Jason. So Amanda, please unmute yourself and speak. Hearing nothing from Amanda, we'll try again at the end. I'm going to go to Charles D. Fowler IV. So Charles, please, you're unmuted now. So let's go ahead.
Thank you, Reese. Good evening, everyone. My name is Charles Fowler. I represent the over 900 men and women of Local 1563, the Anne Arundel County Fire Department, that has the opportunity to serve each and every one of you every day. I want to thank C. Pittman and Councilman Volke for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here to ask you for your continued support of the fire department's projects to increase services and response to the members of the community. As you know, the fire department is one of the only departments in the county that did not reduce services during the pandemic. Not only did we enhance services, we went out there every single day representing your administration, serving the citizens to provide excellent care to everyone that lives in Anne Arundel County or passes through its borders. We're more than just a lights and sirens organization. We have many public initiatives, including Safe Station, the epidemic of heroin in the community that we've responded to every day since it started. We do smoke detector canvases to improve the safety of the citizens, fire hazard inspections to make sure that all the businesses and public spaces throughout the county are safe, as well as mobile integrated health to provide services to members of the community that do not have it available to them. We've assisted with COVID vaccines for the teachers to help get our kids back to school, as well as hand out COVID tests to the community to help reduce the spread. Our members, our paramedics, are overtaxed this moment, spending long hours, as many hours as 11 hours in the hospital waiting just to offload a patient. We ask that you support our initiatives, continue to put people to paramedic school so that we can continue our mission to serve the citizens of Anne Arundel County. I thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you very much. John Jason, you are next.
Hey, Reese, can you hear me?
John, I can hear you fine. Thank you.
Excellent. John Jason, Pasadena, Maryland. Mr. Pittman, thank you for holding these sessions. Also, special thanks to you and the Department of Health for renewing our mask mandates, even after radical partisan elected officials continue to fail our communities. After the coronavirus pandemic passes, we've got some work to do to be the best place for all. We're going to have to find creative ways to recover and encourage businesses and jobs harmed by the pandemic. We're going to have to find ways to make Anne Arundel greener, greater, safer, and cleaner. You know, I can't go for 2 minutes without talking sidewalks, but the challenge this time is to expand sidewalks and safe routes to schools to every Anne Arundel County school. Even better would be to connect them to every library, park, and county building through the green infrastructure greenways. Look at the school bus situation during COVID. Just like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, that was also the best time to lay a sidewalk. The second best time is now. We have to protect our environment. There are a multitude of ways to do so, like where the outstanding Department of Public Works is updating their stormwater culvert management to include native plants, cheap, easy, effective, and with many benefits. Good leadership enables good people to do great things. Thank you for your leadership. On the other hand, certain roads, like Edwin Rayner, truly need help, if not an overhaul. Ask Mr. Volke how many times I've contacted him over accident on Rayner. We need to identify roads that are no longer cutting it, like Rayner and apparently jumpers, rate them, and start fixing them. Also, we have to start addressing the racism, the bias, the divisiveness, and the hatred in our schools and our communities. We can be the best place for all. We just have to work at it. And before I get the buzzer, I would like to extend my thanks and appreciation to all the Anne Arundel County staff who make all the magic happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. Our next three speakers will be Jamie Herman Cognette, O'Brien Atkinson, and then Amanda Davidson.
Am I unmuted?
You
Can
are.
you hear me? Okay, great. My name is Jamie Herman Cognette, and I live at 1091 Vena Lane in the Queens Park community. I am the Vice President of the Queens Park Community Association, the PTSA President of Northeast Middle, and I'm the Secretary of Pasadena Baseball Club. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. Tonight, I'm asking you to consider improvements to the home park of Pasadena Baseball Club, Havenwood Park, as a part of the county budget. In the fall of 2019, there was an issue with the electricity that was run to the fields at the park, and the electricity was completely cut off. It was not cut off to our blockhouse, but it was cut off to all of the fields. This prevents any activities that require electric use throughout our main four-field complex, including the use of pitching machines, both on the fields and in our batting cages, speakers during our events, repairs to dugouts for tools, etc. I'm asking that proper electricity be run to our main fields. In addition to electric, I am requesting that field lights be installed at Havenwood Park. The Greenhaven Improvement Association has discussed and agrees with this plan. It helps with safety of the community when games are both being played and not being played. As you know, beginning in the 2022-2023 school year, school times will be changing. For many families, the change in times, especially for those in middle school, will make evening activities that are not lit impractical, if not impossible. I am not aware of many other organizations within the county who operate with no lighting or for evening games or practices. As you know, extracurricular and athletic activities are an important part of our children's lives. Given the past 2 years, our kids deserve to move forward with activities they love and have them ready to welcome them back. I hope you will support improvements to Havenwood Park as part of the county budget this year and truly make Pasadena the best place for all to live, work, and most importantly, for our kids to be able to play. Thanks.
Thank you. O'Brien Atkinson.
Good evening. My name is O'Brien Atkinson. I'm the president of our Anne Arundel County Fraternal Order of Police. I just want to take a moment of praise to Mr. Chris Trumbauer in the budget office for their work on that new online budget tool. It looks incredible, and I know that its creation is the result of a great deal of work and effort. I hope our citizens utilize it. After years of underinvestment and underfunding in our police department, I want to thank County Executive Pittman for his commitment to us in the budget. I know that Councilman Volke has voted against the budget each year, but he will be the first to tell you that he supports our public safety professionals in word and in spirit. With the new creation of our Community Services Bureau will come staffing challenges in our Patrol Bureau. This brings us to our hiring and our starting salary. We're going to need your continued support and the support of our citizens. You can support our citizens by continuing to invest in their public safety. We have the right leadership in place, but we will need continued funding to continue to grow our operation forward. Thank you both very much.
Thank you. Amanda Davidson is our next speaker.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I wanted to share some things that I'd like to see in the budget and some things that I do not want to see in the budget. First, I live on 4613 Pacific Road in Boulevard Park. And tonight I'm going to ask for a traffic camera to be added at the traffic light at South Carolina and Mountain Road. Many drivers run the red light there. And unfortunately, I was in the crosshairs of one of them last October with my 2 young children in the car. I was T-boned because they ran the red light and hit me. Unfortunately, because there was no proof, we had no witnesses, they couldn't prove who had the red or green light. So if we had a traffic camera at that intersection, that would have been very helpful. Next, some things that I wouldn't like to see in the budget this year would be cell phone towers. I'm not sure if that's something that is ever thought of, but cell phone towers can cause cancer. I do not want to see any of them on school properties close to children with their growing, developing brains. I also don't want to see any mask mandates, vaccine passports, vaccine mandates. And thank you, Nathan Volke, for saying no to the mask mandate last Friday. That's all.
Thank you for your comments. Jacqueline Kyle, we're going to go back to you. Hopefully you're with us.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Great.
Oh, great. Good evening. My name is Jackie Kyle. I'm a volunteer at Anne Arundel County Animal Care and Control, and also the vice chairman of the county's Animal Welfare Council, which advises the county executive on the ethical and humane treatment of animals. Animal Care and Control small staff is supplemented by dozens of volunteers and hundreds of foster families. Volunteers, for example, come very early every single day to make sure dogs get time outside, including some who can't go out during public hours because they're part of court cases. Cat volunteers and foster families dedicate countless hours to improving and saving the lives of cats, ranging from day-old kittens to senior felines. All of this free help is managed by the shelter's foster and volunteer coordinator. Meanwhile, hundreds of animals leave the shelter not with adopters, but with its nonprofit rescue partners. Monday, for example, Stormy, a young husky with few social skills, left with a husky rescue group that finds appropriate homes for these smart but sometimes difficult dogs. Behind each pet's rescue is a long trail of correspondence, phone calls, videos, photos, and other information, all overseen by the shelter's rescue coordinator. And then there are shelter events, such as Give a Pet a Happy Holiday, which collects and distributes pet items to needy county residents, and the annual Halloween party, an extremely popular family event. These are organized by the shelter's special events coordinator. All of the above and more is the responsibility of not 3 people or 2, but just one very overworked individual. That's why I'm requesting that the county combine her position with an existing part-time shelter job to create 2 full-time jobs overseeing fosters, volunteers, rescues, special events, and animal enrichment. Thank you.
Thank you. We've had 2 more hands raised, so I'm going to use this as a final call. If you would like to speak, great, there's some more. Please raise your hand while the next round of speakers are speaking. So I'm going to go with Danielle and then Catherine Buck, followed by Joe Adavignola and Amy Leahy. And if anyone else would like to speak after that, please just raise your hand and then we'll conclude with our comments from the county executive and Councilman Volke. So Danielle, the floor is yours. Hearing nothing, and we can't hear you, Danielle, I'm gonna go to Catherine Buck.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. My name is Catherine Buck, and I'm a teacher in Pasadena. I came to this meeting to ensure education is receiving adequate funding, and I'm pleased to see that the budget includes the Board of Education at the top of the priority list. Thank you, County Executive Pittman and Councilman Volke, for supporting our schools. Teachers cultivate interests, build confidence, and most of all, they share their love for learning with all of those who are lucky enough to be in their class. This is why teachers are important, and education deserves appropriate funding. Teachers are the backbone of our future and need support now more than ever. Thank you to all current teachers, past and present teachers, for influencing and impacting our community. I hope that we are able to continue to work together to improve education. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Joe Adivignola.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My name is Joe Divinola, President of Anne Arundel County Professional Firefighters, Local 1563, and a District 3 resident. Good evening, County Exec Pittman and Councilman Volke. I first want to say our firefighters are proud to serve the great citizens of Anne Arundel County. We operate in 31 fire stations across the county, 5 stations right here in Pasadena. Over the last couple of years, we have made great strides in adding positions. Before the Pittman administration came in, we operated at most of the 31 stations with only 2 career firefighters, one to drive the engine and operate the pump panel, and 1 firefighter to pull a charged hose to the front door, only to wait for another station to come in and help. Both of you know how physical our job is, pulling a charge line into a building with 1 firefighter. You both did fire ops 101 that we provided for you. Our career staff worked 24-hour shifts, and during the last year, many of our members have worked 48 hours straight during COVID pandemic to cover vacancies, injuries, and other illnesses. Right now, we have about 30 of our staff out on injury. We know it's part of the job. Most of us are gonna have lifelong injuries and have a greater chance of contracting cancer. And in fact, in the last year, we had about 11 retirees pass away of cancer. Out of the 31 stations we operate out of, only about 5 stations go out the door with the national standard of 4 staff career members. The last 3 county execs wanted to reduce taxes. They canceled federal money for staffing and even took money back from our paychecks. County Executive Pittman has stood by us in adding staffing to keep our residents safe and our firefighters safe. Cutting taxes to public safety only means pay cuts and underrated staffing. I thank you both for letting me speak tonight.
Thank you. We're going to try again with Danielle. We couldn't hear you the first time. If we can't hear you this time, please email us your comments. I can hear you. I can.
Okay, wonderful. My name is Danielle Redmond. I'm calling as a resident of Creekstone Village. Just asking the county to please consider improvements to Jumpers Hole Road as it is a safety concern for our community. It becomes very difficult getting out on that road, especially during rush hour time, as well as adding sidewalks. There's a lot of people that walk that area, whether to get to work or get to the bike trail, sometimes even on bicycles. So just asking for the community to support us in improvements in our area. Thank you.
Thank you. And to close out our comments, our final commentator is Amy Leahy.
Hi, good evening, Reese. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I didn't realize I had to raise my hand, so I finally got that, and I've done that. First, I want to say, as somebody who was a 20-year employee of the county, it's and 8 of those years being in the county budget office, it's a little difficult to make comments on a budget when you don't really have anything. So I realize this is just a wish list. So what I want to talk about, though, is I'm listening to a lot of people talking about Deep Creek Village. And as somebody who spent a couple of years on the Citizens Advisory Committee for Plan 2040, I would like to say that it's very difficult to retroactively fit sidewalks when the sidewalks really should have been, and the road improvements really should have been done by the developer at the time that that development was happening. And this is what we find a lot of times with the county, is that the developer comes in and gets modifications granted, et cetera, and they don't have to provide the infrastructure that they really should be providing at the time that the project is approved. So I just want to bring that out, because now the Citizens Advisory Committee is disbanded, but there are stakeholder advisory committee meetings that are starting. And the one for Region 4, which does include the Pasadena region, starts on January 24th. These meetings are open to the public for anyone who wants to participate. Well, they can't really participate, but you can observe. And I think that's a very, very important process, because you get to put some input into what is happening in your area. And when it affects development that's going on, and for all of you newbies in the area who see the problems now, please get involved in the local process of development. Thank you so much, Reese.
Thank you. So now for our concluding comments, I'm going to kick it back to Councilman Volke, followed by the county executive. So thank you so much for your time today, everyone. This concludes the public comment period.
Thanks, Reese. Appreciate everybody coming out this evening and sharing their comments. I know the county executive in years past has gone through line by line about the different things we've heard, so I'm not going to steal his thunder. I'll let him do that. But I have heard loud and clear Creekstone Village, fix Jumpers Hole Road. Candidly, that's something that I've been hearing in previous iterations of these budget town halls, and I know that the county is working on that. I think Mr. Trumbauer, who's the budget officer, he's well aware of that. And I know that the folks in DPW are too. So I think the administration is already taking a very hard look at what can be done there. And hopefully they may have something more that they can share, but I would be optimistic that maybe this is the year that we can see something happen with that. I did want to address one gentleman, Mr. Howard, talked about the sidewalk on Fort Smallwood Road over Elizabeth's Landing, basically from Sunset Elementary down to the library. The funding has been approved for that. That's a state project that the county is working with the state on. So that is going to happen. It's just a matter of when, and we keep asking state highways when they're going to be able to work on that. So I don't have more for you right now, but I know that that's one where that has been approved at the state level. Senator Simon Ayer worked on that last year, along with Delegate Kipke and Delegate Chisholm, to get that funding at the state level. And I know the county has done their part too. So that's coming. And then I did appreciate the comments from Mr. Blacketter about the Millersville Tennis Center, because your concerns were a lot of the same concerns that I had, which is why I voted against that particular project. And I thought the comment from Ms. Davidson about the Boulevard Park need for a traffic cam there at South Carolina and Mountain Road was an interesting one, and one that I'd not heard yet. So I've already reached out to Delegate Kipke about that, because that is a state highway issue, I believe. And so we're going to need to take a look at that. But as you probably know, he used to live in that community, so that intersection is near and dear to his heart. So I reached out to him right away about that. It's also great to hear from our public safety personnel, both from Local 1563 and from the FOP. Appreciate you all coming out this evening and being there. One thing I hadn't expected to hear, but I will happily take on this to see what we can do, is Havenwood Park with the lights and the electric. That's certainly something that I'll talk with Rec and Parks and the county administration about. So with that, I appreciate all the comments that everybody has shared, and looking forward to seeing the budget when the county exec has a chance to present it to us in April.
Thank you, Nathan. I won't go through every comment, but I did take a lot of notes. And I know that my staff took a lot of notes as well. So I do want to first thank one commenter, John Jason, for thanking the staff that makes all of this happen. And I want to say that as well. And I'm sure that Councilman Volke agrees that we do have great public servants in Anne Arundel County, and they really work hard to try to deliver. And it's been a tough couple of years doing it along with the pandemic. So I'm very proud of the work that they do. Congratulations to Creekstone Village. Y'all won the prize for the most comments on a specific topic. Sometimes it's animal care control and they're hard to beat, but you blow them out of the water. And I did get a text message that yes, in fact, the transportation office has this as a request, one of their requests, which does not mean that we'll necessarily get funded, but it's certainly you have an ally there, and it's in the mix. And so obviously we have to do the math and set the priorities. But I would like to get out there myself. There were enough people talking about it, and I was looking at it on the aerial on the map as you were talking. And so maybe Reese Peak could from Constituent Services can work with some of you to get that set up so I can come out and take a look. Maybe meet Councilman Volke at the same time. You've probably seen it already, but really interested to see exactly what we're talking about as the problem there. And then to the Duval Highway crowd, you might have beat them with the 9 that were in one room together. And I wish we had the video so that we could see you all and say hello. But thank you, John Spencer, for speaking on their behalf. Also, thank you, John Spencer, for agreeing to serve on the Stakeholder Advisory Committee for the region plan that Amy Leahy was talking about. So there may be others of you who are on that as well. Look forward to all that work. But it's a $1 million plus project, and I can say that is one where participating in these budget town halls and doing it really strategically, having young people speak on the topic, having a lot of people speak on the topic, makes it a lot easier to spend $1 million on sidewalks. I wish they didn't cost so much, but that's absolutely an essential area for sidewalks. And you all are right that when we have schools to connect and libraries to connect and public facilities to connect in communities where a lot of people live, sidewalks are essential. And it's also true that they should have been built early on in the planning. And we're trying to be much more, our transportation office looks at not only transportation of cars, but transportation of people in Move Anne Arundel, and in the subdivision applications now, it's a requirement going forward in a lot of cases, most cases. And then, I do want to say animal care and control. We did fund some of what you asked for. It turns out that the part-time vet position doesn't really work. And I would like to get some people to take a really good look at exactly what the veterinary needs are there and how we can best address them. And if we can't afford to do a full-time veterinarian, that we have to figure out a way to at least fund the veterinary services for all the animals so that they get not only the urgent care that they need, but also the preventive care that they need. And then, libraries, they always come up with something that gets my heartstrings because I'm such a supporter of libraries. They are like community centers in our communities, and they're so important in this day and age. And kindergarten readiness really is, for me, a huge priority. We're going to obviously look hard at their supplemental requests, as well as pay for the lowest paid library employees so that they can actually have a livable wage doing what they do. Somebody mentioned the body-worn cameras for the sheriff's office. That's underway. They got a grant, and I believe there's a bill coming before the council to kick in our piece of that so that we can get that moving and get those body-worn cameras on. And finally, I want to thank the representatives, the teachers who testified, the police officers who testified, the firefighters who testified, some on behalf of their labor organizations. And it's a good thing they're organized to speak on their behalf because they need the advocacy. And it is true that this county has in all 3 of those areas not done as well as our neighbors, and that we are catching up, but the work is certainly not done. And so there's really nothing more important. And when people think about government, sometimes we get pretty tough on government. And it's frustrating because government's a big bureaucracy and never doesn't do everything perfectly by any means. But in local government, we should remember that it's primarily teachers and police officers and firefighters. That's the vast majority of the folks that we're paying with our tax dollars. So thank you all for what you do. And we will never forget you in the budget process. We won't deliver everything that we would like to deliver, but we will never forget you. So thank you, everybody who participated in this. We've got a few more to do, and then we'll be hearing from all of our departments and hearing their budget requests. And I got to say, it's not my favorite part of the job. Saying yes is wonderful. Saying no is really hard, and I think we all feel that way. But I think we'll have a good budget and just continue to try to improve this county. So thank you, everybody.